Very good afternoon to you, and many thanks for joining us on the 7th day of February 2013. You're on the news desk.
My name is Edith Kimani. Thank you for making time to be with us. As usual, we have news as it's happening. We have the latest on an attack in Garissa that has just been reported. We'll bring you details of that. And NCIC saying that politicians are now coding their hate speech. We'll be bringing you the details shortly.
And my name is Boni Tunya. Later on, we'll tell you why the falling of a tree in Nyeri could mean doom for Nyeri politicians.
Let's begin with that story on the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, which has banned the use of some coded languages and negative stereotyping against certain communities in the run-up to the elections. NCIC Vice Chair Millie Lwanga says that the coded words can be used to incite communities against each other and will not be tolerated. And as Mohammed Mahmood reports, it is not a blanket ban on the use of coded language. Those that have a positive impression and can help bring harmony and peaceful coexistence will still be allowed.
The message to Kenyans by the National Cohesion and Integration Commission is that nothing will divide our country, a country that has seen perpetrators of hate speech evolve, advancing to the use of coded language and negative stereotyping. It is for this reason that NCSC commissioned a study to identify ethnic stereotypes, establish how they are perceived by both target communities and those who use it, and the motivation for their use.
We know that a number of societies and communities within the nation are monitoring for hate speech. Therefore, people are using more coded language and stereotype to try and isolate other communities, to try and isolate individuals.
With more than 42 communities living together in Kenya, the use of coded language and ethnic stereotyping can stir ethnic animosity and evoke emotive and negative feelings. The 2008 post-election violence saw Kenyans from certain communities targeted, resulting in internally displaced persons. With only 24 days to the elections, politicians and Kenyans alike have been warned against the use of coded language that is aimed at creating tension.
There are 3 or so particular words that we have seen are deemed to be extremely offensive across those communities, and that we as a commission feel very strongly that should not be used under any circumstances when people are making reference to certain communities.
NCIC Commissioner Ahmed Yassin warns that the negative stereotyping could stir up ill feelings and discourage social interaction between communities living together.
Matamshi haya ikiwa yatatumika kwa njia ya madharau au kwa njia ya kugawanya jamii moja na jamii nyingine, basi tumesema matamshi haya yafai. Na tuliona wakati huu ni wakati muafaka kwa sababu kama tunavyojua ni msimu wa siasa, lakini si mambo ambayo pengine tutayatumia kwa msimu wa siasa peke yake.
According to the report, most of the stereotyping and coded terms are historical and deep-rooted, but despite the history, NCSC now says they have no room in the current society, especially now with the elections round the corner. Mohammed Mahmood reporting for KTN Newsdesk.
And that story leads to our afternoon discussion, where I'm joined by the NCIC Vice Chair Millie Lwanga. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We've just seen you on TV and you're talking about this coded language. But when did the NCIC start noticing this? Because campaigns have been going on for a while.
What happened is that a while back, when we started highlighting the issue of hate speech to the nation, we noticed that we got a lot of support, particularly from members of the Fourth Estate, in trying to highlight the fact that hate speech was an offense and that there was an institution that is now dealing with hate speech.
Yeah.
And the hate that was being perpetrated, particularly during the 2010 referendum on the Constitution, changed or metamorphosed a lot as time progressed, so that people began to use more of coded languages and stereotypes. And you'd find, in fact, we've had complaints from some of our monitors right now that most of the time people resort to vernacular when they actually want to send a deep message.
Yeah.
Because within those vernacular, there are certain coded languages, there are certain stereotypes that they're sure would only be understood by the specific target audience.
Okay, but of course the question here is, how do you control it? How do you control somebody from saying to their members, to the members of his or her community, A, B, C, D about another community?
There are certain, we as a country have said that we need to develop values. We have emphasized the need of values, national values in the Constitution. And other countries, for example, in America, they've banned certain words, just as an example. And they've banned use of certain terminologies, including stating certain words in a neighboring country, Rwanda. So we are saying that we need to develop a value, a culture. We need to agree as a society that it is unacceptable to use certain terminologies when you're referring to an ethnic community.
Do we have time to do that? Because we're drawing really close to the election, and I'm sure as the campaigns heat up, so will that sort of language.
The language is heating up, but the beauty of the study is that it will begin to offer a strong focus for purposes of prosecution. Because when you go to court, now that there's been some study that could offer some guidance to the court as to what certain communities think about certain things as we progress with trying to develop a standard way within which communities will deal with certain words. But for now, with this study, even though it is still preliminary because it should be subject to a lot of validation and a lot of participation, we covered 39 counties. We need to go back and send the counties to them. We need to popularize it a little bit more, and we need to develop a national conversation before we can all agree as a nation that certain terms are simply unacceptable. It is for this reason that we are saying now we need to have this discourse, but at least we have this initial document and initial scientific study that has been done that would be able to support some of the prosecutions that we may have at any time now that the courts would be able to rely on. Let me give you a quick example. In 2010, during the constitutional referendum, people kept talking about Shetani Ashindwe. And there would be people saying that they understood Shetani Ashindwe to mean something.
Right.
But the same statement, the same words were being quoted by preachers in halls, in churches, were being stated by teachers to their students as they're encouraging them to engage in academic endeavors and not other things. So how do you differentiate to the court when this circumstance or when these words are used, when it amounts to hate speech? So this scientific study will be able to give the courts some direction and some support, and support investigative data or investigative material that would be presented that is stating that certain words have particularly incited a community ethnically against another community.
I know it's just the initial report, and you've just mentioned it's just the first of what will be many documents, but you know, they'll keep evolving because the whole purpose of a coded message is so that not everyone can understand it. So you place a ban on certain words and then others evolve. How do you then control that manifestation?
One of the things that we appreciate as a commission is that the issues we are dealing with are ingrained, and it's about change of society. And this cannot be done by legislation, it cannot be done by banning, it cannot be done by hanging a stick over people's heads. So for us, the programs around awareness and education for people to be able to inculcate these issues or internalize them becomes key. That is why, for example, we have engaged with the education sector, we have engaged with the curriculum developers to try and develop language and use language even within the curriculums that they are formulating that will change certain culture. So we are also talking about, that's why when you look at the report, it doesn't just focus on negative stereotypes. It says there are also positive stereotypes. We can still use stereotypes and coded language positively.
Isn't that oxymoronic? How can you have a stereotype that's positive?
For example, stereotypes that depict a certain community as being industrious. Stereotypes that depict a community as being loyal. Stereotypes that depict a community as being vigilant.
But don't you think it will create a conflict? Because the minute you say, okay, fine, we're allowing you to say that X community is like this, but only if it's positive, wouldn't it automatically breed negative sentiments?
I'm very hesitant to use the word allowing, because people will use stereotypes. It is a form of communication. It is a way of defining the communities around us. We are encouraging people to use positive stereotypes because it excites people to want to learn, What is peculiar about this community that makes them largely loyal? What is peculiar about them that makes them largely industrious? And if we are to achieve our national agenda of coming together as a nation and building finally after 50 years a nation known as Kenya, and not many nations within one state known as Kenya, then we must actively go out to look for things that will promote that kind of engagement. So we are saying you cannot ban people from talking in a certain way.
Yeah.
You cannot stop them from using certain things like stereotypes. It exists everywhere in the world, but we are encouraging people to focus on those that promote unity and excite positive relationships between the different groups that exist in the nation.
All right, thank you very much for coming to join us in our studio this afternoon. We've been speaking to Millie Lwanga, who is the Vice Chair of the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, which, if you had missed it, has banned the use of some coded languages and negative stereotyping against certain communities, which politicians are allegedly using in the run-up to the general elections. Of course, more details will be coming your way at our 9 o'clock and 7 o'clock bulletins, so do stay tuned. Elsewhere, the Anglican Church of Kenya has added its voice to the land debate, saying that those using it in their political campaigns are propagating hate speech. Archbishop Eliud Wabukala says that the matter is contentious and should be avoided at such a time. The Archbishop was speaking in Nakuru town after holding a meeting with 29 ACK bishops from the church, attending a reflection and a consultation meeting on healing and reconciliation ahead of the 4th March 2013 general elections.
We want to put that in the context of hate speech as we stand today, that things to do with the land issues, things to do with the past that can bring bitterness in the minds of people should be categorized under hate speech, particularly at the campaign period, so that plans to deal with the issues of our development can wait until after elections, and those people elected in the offices can take up these matters. For example, the Land Commission can be strengthened to continue to do that work. But as we stand today, things that will bring back the past, which can cause animosity, should be categorized under hate speech.
So do you think the people, the politicians are propagating the land issues?
And I will move on to other stories making headlines, where there has been some shooting in Garissa. Here now are the details. A police officer. Motive of the killing is still unknown, as assailants still remain at large. We'll be bringing you details to that story in our subsequent bulletins. And now I'll move on to other stories making headlines. The Kenya Wildlife Service has moved to clarify reports that 2 of its senior officers have been suspended. Speaking to KTN, Paul Oduto, the communications director at KWS, says the 2 officers were forced to take annual leave to pave way for internal investigations on the rise of poaching incidences that have caused concern, and more specifically at the rate at which Kenyan elephants are being targeted for their precious tusks. Catherine Omwanto reports.
Friday the 1st of February, 2 senior Kenya Wildlife Service officers, Peter Leitoro, the Director of Security, and Benjamin Kavu, the Director of Wildlife and Community, were asked to take their annual leave, which was approved by the KWS Director. The forced leave is meant to pave way for internal investigations on the rising cases of poaching and wildlife security. The investigations will also look into other aspects such as sabotage by officers, and those found guilty will be either sacked or suspended depending on their level of involvement. Last month, 11 elephants were slaughtered by ivory poachers and their tusks were chopped off at the Tsavo National Park in one of the worst poaching incidences in Kenyan history. In 2012, Kenya is reported to have lost 350 elephants from a population of at least 50,000. But the elephant and rhino poaching does not just affect Kenya. Police in Mombasa seized 2 tons of ivory worth 100 million shillings, the biggest haul on record so far. The ivory said to have originated from Rwanda and Tanzania and were destined for Indonesia. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
Now, moving on to now political stories. All political aspirants allied to the TNA vying for the political seats in Nakuru County have to come together to ensure the forthcoming elections will be peaceful in the region. Led by aspiring governor for Nakuru County, former AP Commandant Kinuthia Mbugua, the team said they will hold joint rallies to woo voters and respect the outcome of the democratic process.
Our county campaign program, which we gave also to the IEBC, I gave as the governor candidate, and also now we have incorporated all other candidates, that is the MPs before us and the county reps, so that is an harmonized campaign program. And as I've said, we work as a team. We go out there and seek for the win of our party, the TNA, our party and our president. I would assure all the people of Nakuru and the Kenyans, our stand is that democracy prevails.
Now, with just 25 days left to go to the March 4th general elections, organizations across the country are gunning for peace with different peace campaigns. And the latest came from the corporate world, where Safaricom launched a peace campaign. We are now joined by Eric Njoka, who I understand will be speaking to us much later on the peace efforts by Safaricom. We'll have to take a breather to pay the bills, but coming up on the other side of this short break, we have business news and sports. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the program. Time for that phone link I promised you earlier, where organizations across the country are gunning for peace campaigns in preparation for the March 4th general elections, with just 25 days to go. And the latest has been Safaricom. I'm now joined by Eric Njoka, who is at Safaricom House with the latest from that front. Good afternoon, Njoka.
Good afternoon. Let me just correct you. It's not Safaricom House, but it's at Sarova Stanley right here in Nairobi. And what I witnessed today is the initiation of the City Ni Amani initiative, which was launched by Safaricom. And the platform is to send out targeted peace messages at micro level with the aim of preventing election-based violence. And what is interesting is that Safaricom has said or offered to donate 50 million SMSs to the initiative to boost the Peace initiative. Furthermore, we had people speaking on their behalf just to initiate the peace initiative in the country. We had the NCIC chairman Kibunji Mzalendo, who said that categorically that technology can also ruin us if we use it. He said that this technology may bring us problems in the forthcoming elections if we misuse the kind of technology that we have, that is the phone, also the SMSs, the Twitter messages we have, the Facebook. He has been categorical in this. He says that if we are not careful, this may ruin the forthcoming elections. Using an example of the party campaign, where he says that there was a wide misuse of SMSs in the country. We also had the acting police spokesman, Charles Owino, who was categorical on insecurity. He says insecurity, including discrimination, violates the right to vote. He says that they are now training police on electoral laws to mitigate criminal activities during and after the election. Some of this training includes the electoral offenses, use of force, he says the police force has identified hotspot areas and beefed up security. And he says these hotspot areas are not the common ones that we familiarize ourselves with. Actually, he says that all the 47 counties are under the radar and should be the police will be vigilant on that.
Now Njoka, allow me just to jump in. Do you know who is generating these peace messages? Is it Safaricom or is it individual subscribers?
individual subscribers. Actually, what Safaricom is saying that they cannot control the number of messages that are going out, because he says that Safaricom says that the number of subscribers has increased to 30 million. Can you imagine, Bonnie Twinger? What he says, actually, if I can go back to the police, he says that, that they will now engage mobile subscribers to monitor hate speech. He says, interestingly, that women will be engaged in the forthcoming election and will be given special attention during the election.
Now,
yes,
Joker, quick question. Of course, we are trying to promote peace with sending the positive messages, which are in their millions. But how then are they going to curb negative messages that are, of course, going to be sent in this period?
One thing that the police actually mentioned here is that what Kenyans are doing, they're very ignorant in sending these messages. He says that they say actually that they've been monitoring what has been happening on Twitter, on SMSs, also on Facebook. He says that Kenyans are very ignorant with the messages that they send out to their friends, to their enemies. They're very particular with such messages. They say that Kenyans should be very cautious when they're sending very personal messages to their friends, and the list goes on, Twinger.
Indeed, many thanks, Eric Njoka, for speaking to us on the news desk. At the launch of a peace SMS campaign by Safaricom that will see subscribers send millions of positive SMSs. We'll shift gears now in time to look at what is happening in the world of business. We'll start with a look at at what is happening at the NSE as regards to the indices and where your money is. And I'll start with a look at the biggest gain as Diamond Trust Bank is up 6.11%. Of course, it's currently valued at 139 shillings flat. As Kengen is up 4.18%. You can buy the stock at 12 shillings and 45 cents. Rare Vipingo and Bamburi moving up marginally at 3.75 and 2.96% respectively. As Kenya Re closes, the winners for us up 2.88%. You can get it at 12 shillings and 50 cents. A quick look at the biggest drops. As at this afternoon, Marshall's East Africa is down 9.54%. We haven't seen that big a fall all week long. TPS Serena, the owners of Serena Hotels, down 4.71%. You can buy the stock at 40 shillings and 25 cents. As Samia Africa and East Africa and Portland moving down marginally at 4.12 and 3.33% respectively, with TransCentury edging down and closing the losers for us down 2.86. And remember, these indices from the NSE are scrolling at the bottom of your screen in the course of this live telecast. Let's now look at factors to watch in the African markets. We'll get to that later on, but time for our afternoon business chat, and we're talking about TV, and TV has had a big space to play, especially on the campaigns with less than 25 days to go. And today we're talking about digital migration. My guest in studio is Kamal Sorab. I hope I say that right. He's a business manager at Pan Africa Group. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Bwana Kamal, we've seen delays and postponements of date and switch of dates keep changing. I know that is really not your core business, but as an industry player, are you happy with the kind of postponement we've been seeing?
I can't say that I'm happy, but I have to commend the initiative the government and the CCK are putting.
Yes.
Especially now they're negotiating with the consumer body COFEC, and we are just hoping both parties come to an agreement.
Yes.
To the best interest of the Kenyan public. But Kenya, I see, first of all, as a company, we are ready for the migration. We have covered 70% of the country's population. That's, if you calculate, 80 to 90% of the TV population in Kenya. So as the country is ready, but we just hope for the best in the negotiations.
Of course, Kamal, Pan Africa is really in charge with setting up the infrastructure that is going to be using this, and not really set of boxes or the boxes that people use at home. So your target is really the content providers. How is that so far?
No, the content providers are our main clients, like the pay TV providers, the free to air. And since CCK is pushing towards this, they have been authorizing new players, small, big, coming on board on our platform, and the Signet platform, I believe.
Of course, Signet just being the only competitor. Who are the other than the big companies like the big TV, the mainstream TV, KTN, NTV and whatnot? But do you have provision for smaller entrepreneurs who may be wanting to get into the business of content provision?
Yes, we do. We have actually signed about 5 new ones, and I have about 10 potential agreements to be finalized. So we are looking at a great increase in number of channels for Kenya.
Still on the deadline issue, how do we compare with the other East African countries? We understand Tanzania is ahead of us. They've already migrated.
Yeah, Tanzania switched off on the 31st of 2012 because all the East African countries had agreed, but in Kenya, due to the fact that we have these ongoing negotiations, it has been postponed. But Kenya was ahead, and I believe Kenya can still move ahead compared to the other countries in East Africa.
As Pan-Africa, of course, you're putting in a lot of money in this venture. When do you expect to see 100% coverage that will, of course, result into return on investment?
Coverage we're hoping to see in before 2015. That's before the global switch-off deadline.
Yes.
And in terms of investment, by the end of 2012, we invested about 4 billion shillings. And this year, we hope to invest more than that. To improve on the expansion, we need to hire local Kenyan staff.
Yes.
Because we need a lot of training to give.
You need to hire local Kenyan staff. Who works for you currently?
We have both expatriates and Kenyans. This is a new technology in the country, so we bring in the expatriates with the expertise to train the local staff before we can hand over to them.
Now, Kamal, Pan-Africa and Signet are the only ones providing infrastructure in this area, and of course there was some bit of attention in the tendering of that process. Take us through that, and how did you get this?
No, we applied like a normal company, and successfully we were given the contract by CCK, but we followed all the rules and regulations.
Of course there was concern that local owners needed to take a stake in this. How does that sit with you?
Okay, I can't say anything in terms of the local,
yes.
But as Pan-Africa, I think we have done what we have been asked to do and what we put on the tender, and we have placed the infrastructure as requested by the CCK, who are our regulator here.
A chance to give you to make a free ad here, and who are you looking for in terms of clients? Because for the end user, someone watching at home, when you're talking about infrastructure and you're not providing the boxes, what exactly are you doing? Who are you looking for? Who's your trading partner here?
Basically, what we look for are the local content producers, people who try to make movies. So we encourage them to come into, set up a group, and they can start a channel which can be easily hosted on our platform, because for now with digital migration they don't have to spend a lot in startups because they don't have to worry about transmission costs. They only have to concentrate on content production.
You're talking about not spending a lot. How much is that?
For example, I believe you have very high costs here in maintenance, power, technicians, so we cover that. So you would welcome KTN, and you don't have to concentrate on that. What you have to do is just think of a better content to give to the Kenyan public.
Finally, is this whole idea of content generation as a business model, does it actually have fruits it will bear? I mean, we've just been talking about it. We've been talking about there'll be more movies, a lot of this, a lot of local content, but does it have a business sense?
Yes, it does. Many people will be employed into making this content, and new companies can be set up. We can have more channels, employment for Kenyans. So there's a lot to look forward to.
Indeed, current market share?
I believe we have 50–60% of the market.
Indeed, good luck even as we head towards the digital migration. Of course, as you might have known by now, there was a case in court where the Consumer Federation took the government in regards to the timelines of the digital migration, which was pushed to the end of 2013. We'll be waiting to see that, but as you've heard, we are ready in terms of infrastructure. What remains is the next step as regards to the deadline. I'll be speaking to Kamal Sorab, who's the Business Development Manager at Pan-Africa Group. Moving on, let's take a look at other factors to watch in the African markets now, and some 16 million shares valued at about 425 million were traded in just about 1,500 deals, down from 39 million shares that were valued at 613 million posted yesterday. Now, the NSE 20 share index crossed the 4,500 point mark to close the day at just about 4,522.53, up 71 points. The all-share index was also up 0.81 points, stands at 105.39 as the FTSE NSE Kenya 15 indices, and also the 25 were up 0.7 0.75 points to settle at just about 139.38. The FTSE Kenya 25 index was also up 0.75 points to settle at 141.82. Let's go to other African markets, where in a Reuters report, France wants the African-led military mission in Mali to be replaced with a United African's peacekeeping mandate in April. Mali's Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius confirmed this on Wednesday to a Reuters report. And let's go down south, where South African stocks ended slightly lower on Wednesday as mobile phone firms pushed the bars down after Vodacom's quarterly earnings failed to excite South Africans' rand eased against the dollar on Wednesday after a large amount of bond redemptions, and is likely to be range-bound before manufacturing data and European Central Bank meeting on Thursday. Finally, Nigeria's Naira weakened against the US dollar on the interbank market on Wednesday on a sudden jump on demand for dollar by importers. Those are the factors to watch in the African markets. Now you know where your money is and where it needs to go. But back to a story that we highlighted yesterday. The Insurance Regulatory Authority, the regulator, put Concord Insurance Group on statutory management on issues that they could not meet their obligations. And KTN is keeping with that story. We're now joined by Michael Karanja on phone, who's been chasing up to just give us details as to why this company was put on statutory management and what it means to the industry. Michael Karanja, if you can hear me, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bulletin, back in studio.
What exactly is happening with Concord Insurance?
Well, just looking at a perspective from the insurance industry, it's been a tough time. We've seen over the last 3 years, a number of insurance companies have actually come together and merged the operations, basically just to meet the new statutory requirements put in by the Insurance Regulatory Authority. Now, unfortunately for the likes of Concord Insurance, whose main line of business has been insuring both commercial and private vehicles, it hasn't been able to meet obligations which include payment of claims, paying its policyholders, or even its creditors. Now, since 2011, it has made several just to meet statutory requirements, and it has subsequently been put on statutory management by the IRA.
Now, Karanja, of course, earlier on, the regulator had already put some managers in the team of Concord Insurance, but it is not the first insurance company that is going under. A few years back, we saw East African Insurance and many others, especially in the motor industry. How does this speak to the industry in regards to how the companies are going under?
Well, like any observer will tell you, insurance, especially where you have to do with commercial vehicles, is always a tricky business. We remember the likes of Blue Shield, which also came under such pressure, and now we're seeing Concord. Well, commercial vehicles don't form majority of its business, but it's main underwriting in that department with premiums almost of 57.5 million shillings in terms of what they needed to pay in commercial vehicles, which they haven't been able to do for some time now. And then now this year we're seeing the IRS stepping in, as it has given it as much leeway as it could possibly do. But now it's supposed to step in and actually stop it from taking any new business or underwriting anyone else in terms of either motor, private motor, or even commercial motor.
Well, many thanks, Michael Karanja. Of course, we'll be speaking to you again once you make contact with the new management team at Concord Insurance Company. Let's move on. And income from the titanium mining in Kwale is set to displace coffee as a fourth-ranked foreign exchange earner soon after exports start rolling out of the port of Mombasa in the fourth quarter of this year. Now, the project is expected to triple earnings in mineral sector to 2 billion shillings annually, translating to just about 26 billion shillings over the year 2013. In Kwale project mined through the royalties and taxation. Now, physical construction works at the Kwale Mineral Sands projects by Base Titanium Kenya is about 70% complete. The company has spent more than $200 million of the estimated total startup cost of about $310 million. On 5 major supporting projects include a jetty, processing plant, infrastructure, and much more. The company has planned an annual export of just about 300,000 tons of the mineral, 80,000 tons of rutile, and other 30,000 tons of zircon. Now, from that business note, let's move to other interesting stories that we highlighted earlier on. And to many people, the falling of a tree is a natural occurrence. Now, but some villagers in Nyeri, when the fallen tree happens to be a sacred fig tree or MUGUMO tree, as it is known to many, then it is a symbol of something extremely important. With the general election around the corner, the falling of a MUGUMO tree in Tetu has created debate in the county. Betty Kialo with that story.
Until yesterday, it had been more than 200 years since this tree stood tall and bold. However, when heavy rains pounded the area recently, the once-strong tree could not withstand it. And at the end of it all, it crumbled and tumbled, something that shocked residents in Nyeri County.
Kitamaduni ni kusema wale siku hizi wana utawala kama ni wazee wapatie vijana.
What has elicited debate in the village and the county is the belief in Kikuyu culture that the falling of a MUGUMO tree is referred to as Itwika, which means change of guard or end of a dynasty. With elections around the corner, many locals believe that the falling of the MUGUMO tree could signify the fact that Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta has a chance to succeed President Mwai Kibaki. The falling of the tree, according to locals, is not just an ordinary happening. Gikuyu and Mumbi Cultural Museum Executive Director Samuel Kamida said that whenever a MUGUMO tree fell in Gikuyu land, it had a deeper meaning to the community. For example, in 1963, a huge MUGUMO tree fell in Thika, and thereafter it led to the exit of colonialists who were being fought by a local group, the Mau Mau. In 2013, what will the fall signify? Only time will tell. For KTN Newsdesk, I'm Betty Kialo.
And from trees falling, let's get back to politics. And now the political campaign trail remains busy, with all presidential candidates pitching camp in different parts of the country to woo voters. While the Code Alliance wrapped up its campaigns in Nyanza and Western yesterday, the Jubilee Alliance were in Turkana County, where presidential candidate Uhuru Kenyatta urged Kenyans to shun ethnicity and work as one nation. RBK presidential hopeful Professor James Ole Kiapi was in Ukambani, while Amani Coalition-led Eugene Wamalwa were in Lugari district. Those and more in our political roundup next.
There was near pandemonium in Homa Bay County when Prime Minister Raila Odinga took the code campaigns to the county. Homa Bay was one of the counties that witnessed violent protests over ODM party primaries, and it would appear voters here are yet to heal. They heckled and booed ODM aspirants who were cleared by the party's elections board to contest in spite of the sharp differences that arose over nominations. Code Effect leader Ababu Namwamba came to the rescue of ODM aspirants whom the crowd felt had received the party tickets unfairly.
We will not allow anything. We will not allow little squabbles here to ruin the journey of Raila Odinga to State House.
Raila appealed to voters in the region to vote a six-piece suit for ODM candidates, despite the fact that some disgruntled candidates in the ODM primaries defected to affiliate parties in the alliance where they got direct tickets to contest. And campaigning in Kabarnet grounds in Baringo County, Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, who is also Code Alliance's running mate, said insecurity being witnessed in some parts of the country will be a thing of the past if Code Coalition is given opportunity to form the next government. Kalonzo said cattle rustling should be brought to an end if peace and development is to be realized.
I will sit with those communities. If you empower them, hii shida inatokana na umaskini. Mtu akijua kumuua mwenzako ni mbaya, utaona kama ako na pesa kwa mfuko hataenda kuibia mwenzake.
Elsewhere, the Jubilee Alliance presidential candidate Uhuru Kenyatta campaigned in Turkana County, where he called on residents to shun ethnicity and foster national unity.
Vyama vyetu na muungano wetu ni muungano wa kuingiza watu wote ndani ya serikali. Hatutaki mtu mmoja awachwe nje.
Tumesema hawa askari wetu, askari wa polisi na askari wa jeshi, tutahakikisha ya kwamba askari wa polisi na askari wa jeshi wanafanya kazi pamoja. Tutabadilisha masomo yao ili waelewe kazi yao sawa sawa, na tutahakikisha ya kwamba kuna magari mara 5 ya kuhakikisha kwamba askari hawa wanaweza kushughulikia mambo yenu ya kuchunga mali yenu.
And finally, the Amani Coalition's Eugene Wamalwa rallied support for the alliance in parts of Kakamega County that included Matunda Trading Center and Lugari.
Kwamba amani, kando na kuhakikisha Wakenya wamekaa kwa amani, wana maono, wana nia, wana uwezo wa kubadilisha maisha yenu na kuboresha maisha ya Wakenya wote.
Patrick Amimo, KTN.
All right, and we're just winding up. Let me give you the did you know fact of the day. Did you know that new love, i.e. if you've just gotten a new girlfriend or a new boyfriend, it can make you hallucinate and imagine stuff as being too positive and even reduce your ability to understand sarcasm?
We all know I didn't help in coming up with all things. My name is Boni Tunya. Good afternoon. You've been watching the News Desk.
And my name is Edith Kimani. Thank you for your company. Let's see you again tomorrow.